Welcome to EpicTalks, the leadership podcast for those who want to reach new heights.
Frida Kjidderö is a thoughtful and grounded leader with a strong sense of fairness, clarity, and personal integrity. In her role at Roboyo, she works with operational excellence across teams and cultures, always with a focus on people. Her leadership philosophy is rooted in respectful honesty, empathy, and the courage to face the uncomfortable. For Frida, leadership is about creating trust, setting clear expectations, and staying true to your values, even when it's hard. Welcome to Epic Talks. Today's episode is about the kind of leadership that doesn't shy away from hard truths. Leadership that shows up, stands tall, and speaks with both empathy and courage. With me is Frida Kjidderö, Global Operational Excellence Manager at Roboyo, a leader known for her clarity, fairness, and ability to deal with discomfort head on, not despite being empathic, but because of it. Welcome, Frida.
Thank you. What a nice way to open up. We should do this every day. It's a confidence boost for sure.
And we're gonna talk about lessons learned from your experience, actually. This is the topic, comes from reflections and insights from experiences. You said some leadership lessons feel like a punch in the face. What do you mean by that?
Well, sometimes you just get humbled and reminded that you do not know everything and you don't have all the answers. When I say you, I mean me. So even though I might go into a situation thinking, well, oh, I got this bachelor's degree and I got that master's degree and I've read all of the leadership books and I'm a master now. And then you just get slapped with a real life situation where you do not know what to do at all. And working with people can be very unpredictable. And just when you think you got it figured out, you might end up in a situation where you just go blank. So some lessons you can learn as a soft whisper while you're out taking a walk, thinking about life, and then some lessons will hit you like a truck. Might be that I need to be more observant as well, that maybe I didn't hear or pay attention to the whispers enough times so that they'll eventually turn into a truck or a punch. But usually when something blows up, it's been brewing and showing signs before it happens.
I agree. But you have a kind of focus with kindness or fairness. So, what made you realize that being kind isn't always the same as being fair?
It sort of depends on how you think about kindness or how you if you focus a lot on how you are interpreted. So when I think about leading with empathy or trying to have a kind approach in leadership, that does not mean people pleasing, and it does not mean that I'm being a pushover. It's quite the opposite actually. So it doesn't mean that you're always pleasant and nice to everyone and that you never have any uncomfortable conversations. It's more about being respectful and clear and thinking about the choice of words and how you frame things. I'm not sure if I'm a master in empathetic leadership, but I try to be a practitioner at least. And I don't think that necessarily kind and fair can't coexist. But sometimes if you focus too much on being kind, or being nice is more the word, that's, I don't know, you can define it either way, but nice is more like when you just try to keep everyone happy and say what everyone wants to hear. If you focus too much on that, you might be unfair as a leader. And if you focus on being fair, then you can try to work in the kindness and being respectful in your delivery. And sometimes the fair way is actually the kind way, even though it might not always seem like it. So let's take an example of a boss who tries to be liked by everyone. Usually that doesn't work. So that could look like they say what everyone wants to hear. So people might not trust you because you say different things in different situations. Or they don't think you'll deal with things properly if you're more looking after winning a popularity contest. So if that's what you're focusing on, then it's pretty likely, if you focus on being nice and like, then you're probably not doing your job right.
It's very wise insights, and you explained it very well, the difference. And in the long run, it's it's making your inner growth wider and broader. But I'm going to talk about responsibilities and fairness, not losing yourself. How do you hold people accountable without losing your human touch?
First of all, the accountability can't come without responsibility first being assigned and clearly articulated. That isn't fair. So imagine that I am your professional trainer and we're going to the gym and I will just throw a dumbbell at you. Well, not at you. Give you a dumbbell, and I will say, "You just get this job done." You don't know what, you don't know how, you don't know the quantity, and then I just start fuming with rage because you're not doing what I want you to do. So to do that in a professional environment is a great way to build disengagement. So therefore, we need to be able to have any type of accountability. We need to have clarity before consequences. So, does people know what success look like? Have we been clear in terms of setting the expectations and responsibilities and KPIs? And KPIs are also supposed to be guides. They're not weapons. In that case, you're doing it wrong as well. So most people want to do a good job. Most people want to feel in control and that they evolve and that they grow along with the company. And if you're unclear as a leader or assigning responsibilities without proper explanation or enablement, that's a not nice way to treat people, and they usually don't like it. So, getting back to sort of the human part of it, is that consistency builds trust. So, we need to think about how we can be fair without being too robotic, and also that we hold all levels accountable to the same standards, including myself. So it's a shared value. It's not just a management tool, and it's important that I also model what I
Oh,
expect.
thank you. That was a lot of tools you shared with us. So thank you. But you talked about being rewarded with more responsibility, but also more exposure. What happens when leaders stop taking things personally?
So taking things personally is something. It's been a tough lesson for me to get through, and something I'm honestly still working on. So sometimes I can work really hard on something, and I think it can be hard sometimes to listen to feedback if the project becomes kind of like your baby. So I can be really sure, and I've done this a lot, so I can be really sure that I'm getting it right. I'm convinced this is the way forward, and I've been so sure of myself, and maybe I just didn't want to hear it, which isn't going to work because you're closing yourself off from the opportunity to learn and evolve. And I try to disconnect my pride in what I do and focus on the gift of information when a person is giving me, even if it might not be in a pretty package every time. If they're really upset, if it's a management situation and it's a big situation, I think about don't get furious, get curious. And sometimes that isn't easy. And I've learned as well that like if someone gets very cynical and mean in their approach to feedback, then they probably weren't listened to the first time and they've sort of given up to the situation. um if we have a situation where someone is very upset and it's a lot of like cynicism, it's also telling me that it might not only be the topic at hand, but it's just this topic was added on top of everything else. And if I'm sensing that, that can be an opportunity to be more like, we were talking about this topic, but I sense that there's a lot of tension and that there's something else as well. So can you share a bit more on how that works, right? No, what's happening right now? Um, and keeping that openness to if I just shut down when I get a feedback that maybe isn't what I wanted to hear, then I'm never putting myself off for the opportunity to have those types of conversations. If I'm like, nope, I'm the boss, I'm being right, and you can just be mad about it. That's usually not a good approach, and it will just make people not give you important information on how well it lands. Um, so one thing I've worked on is the difference between, and this is something defined by Brene Brown, who's someone I've used a lot in my guidance for leadership, is the difference between armored leadership and daring leadership. So armored leadership is being a knower and being right, and daring leadership is being a learner and getting it right.
Oh, that was a lot of practical things you shared. And if you could talk about what ways have you had to evolve your leadership style over time and what stayed the same?
I don't haven't considered myself a leader for that long. As I said, I still think I'm sort of in the beginnings of it all. But one thing is definitely I came from pretty humble beginnings where nothing was given to me, and a lot of times I felt that I didn't really fit in when I came into work life. So even culturally, I was just some country folk, and I didn't understand the mannerisms and the way of communication and my way of living, what I have access to, where others have like cabins where they can go skiing and they have all this connections that they can use, and I didn't have that. So for a while, I felt like I needed to become them, and I needed to, especially when I started out in like more the finance world, and it was like a very different um, culture and mannerisms than I was used to. That I needed to become this ruthless shark that didn't care, and I would do anything for success and just um, be ice cold in that sense. So I tried doing that and tried to be something I'm not and try to fit in with that. And then I felt like this isn't a suit that I like wearing. So I kind of returned to myself and what felt authentic to me, and I stopped pretending to be this shark when I'm really not. I'm just a turtle floating around in here. Although I don't know, maybe turtle isn't a good way. I don't have a shell that I hide in. Um, I maybe more an otter or something. Anyhow, I care deeply about the people around me. Actually, even in my workplace, when someone leaves, I get really sad, and I care about the people I work with, and I don't want to have to be this ruthless, disrespectful shark to um, climb on other people to move forward.
I'm glad you're not a shark anymore, and it was a beautiful story for that transformation. But if we talk about the conflict, you seem to embrace conflict, not as something to
Mhm.
fear, but something to face. But how did you develop that mindset?
So if I avoid telling someone that they're not meeting my expectations, especially as a manager who's going to do the performance review and what it might be, I'm actually not supporting their development as their manager. And as a manager, we have a responsibility to not only get them to do the job that we hired them for, but also to grow them in their careers and make sure that they have what they need. So if I'm not taking care of that, if I'm being neglectful of their possible growth and I'm not giving them the opportunity to rise to the occasion, and people might actually surprise you sometimes when you think a tough conversation is going to be really difficult, and it just flows through so easily. And avoiding tough conversations isn't just about dodging discomfort. You're actively withholding clarity and the truth and the growth from people and from the business. And when leaders don't address issues or feedback or performance concerns, they're not protecting people. They're potentially actually harming them in the long run and the team, because as a leader, you also have the responsibility to spare your team a little bit from some of those headaches. And I don't mind being a human shield if they are nervous for client meetings where it's a rough topic that's going to come up. I might want to challenge someone to try to deal with it themselves, so just so they get the learning opportunity. But I might stay as a backup just so they can learn themselves how to deal with the tough conversation, but also not be in complete panic. I've done that before when it's like, you want me to join this meeting because I think they might be slightly annoyed. I can just sit there. I think you can deal with it. But if that makes you feel safer, and that's been appreciated at least, maybe the presence will be enough. And afterwards, you can have a teaching moments and reflect on it together. And but the what I'm getting at is that people can't improve what they're unaware of, and without feedback, they can get stuck or unknowingly repeat mistakes. And silence can also create confusion, or they can get annoyed that it's like embarrassing that everyone knew of this problem and I didn't. And it also sends a message that problems don't matter or that people aren't worth the effort. So being a leader is that you're sort of stewarding growth and results, and withholding the necessary conversation is a breach of that duty that we have.
You often say that avoiding tough conversation is a form of negligence. Can you unpack that?
But it sort of ties back to that being clear is kind and being unclear is unkind. So to be direct in your communication and respectful, it prevents confusion and in the long run resentment. I also avoid sugarcoating something and being dishonest because it's avoidance. And I try to be completely honest with them to the extent that you can. Sometimes you can't tell someone everything, but I don't want to promise something that I can't keep. I don't I don't want to oversell their future into unrealistic expectations. I think many leaders shoot themselves in the foot by doing that because if they say, "Oh, you're such a star and you're gonna get such a promotion the next cycle, I'm sure of it," and then they don't, they will just get angry when they thought they had a promotion in the bag and didn't get it, for instance. And sometimes as a leader, you have to deal with, which I think a lot of leaders the last couple of years had to deal with layoffs, and you have to be you can't really be the nice guy trying to win the popularity contest in that setting, and you can't lie to them and say, "Oh no, don't worry about your job," and then they might actually gonna lose their jobs. Um, so doing with that is a way of taking care of them and say, we're going through a tough time now, and I currently don't know. When I know something that is of relevance to you, I'm going to tell you because you need the option of making your own decisions. And if someone is going to lose their livelihood and I go around saying, "No, don't worry about it. I'm going to figure it out. It's no problem." And then I knew all along that someone was getting fired. That's not an actual situation, but hypothetically, let's say that happened. That is very mean. And even though it might feel nice that they will calm down in that moment, and it's a small moment of feeling better, in the long run, they would probably much more likely wanting to hear the truth of, "I'm not sure. It might be either way. We're looking into it. I don't want to hold you in the dark, but I don't want to say either way right now, and I'm not sure."
Yeah, and that's kind of fostering the culture. So, Karen, human capital, for seeing people beyond their performance. And how do you balance care and clarity?
I think it came from my firstly the academic training where I've had, where conflict was more framed like an opportunity to create an understanding or innovate or improve something that isn't working. It's just about how you deal with conflict. So conflict doesn't mean failure, and conflict doesn't, or at least it shouldn't mean danger. And it doesn't have to be a confrontation. It doesn't have to feel like a confrontation or a trial. There's a difference between productive tension and a toxic disagreement. And sometimes the difference can just be a deep breath between the two. And I that's the first step, is to not deal with conflict when everyone is up in their emotions. And I think it's almost sort of that we humans are very emotional, and that doesn't go away when we go to work, and we need to acknowledge that people will bring that to work as well. And it's usually the thing that makes everything complicated when we try to solve something, because someone can it can hurt their pride, or they get angry, and then when everyone is up in their emotions, it can be hard to have that sort of productive tension, because usually it's better when everyone has sort of settled into it. So acknowledge that. Okay, let's think about this for a minute, and then we return when we have sort of our blood pressure down to a level where you can think, because your brain literally shuts off some parts of it when it's too stressed. So I don't know if you've experienced what it's like in an environment where conflict isn't allowed, really, like in how in some families you don't never really resolve anything, and you don't talk about it, you don't address it, nothing. And let me tell you, there is plenty of conflict in there. You can't pretend it away, that it's just, if you don't talk about it, then it's not there. The conflict stays. So all that happens is that it takes very unproductive paths, and it's just unavoidable, and you have to deal with it. It's the only way through it. And it might be uncomfortable, but it doesn't have to be destructive. And I think about it, if there's someone in the circle and you say that has done something to you, and you can tell them that I know you don't mean any harm when you do this, but I actually don't like it when you do that. And they will go, oh my goodness, I didn't know. And it's just such a relief to have that misalignment out of the way, and you feel so much better afterwards, and you just cleared that out. So it was a slight sort of productive tension when you said, this is something that you do that I don't like. But once that's out of the way, then it's gone. It's the only way out is through. And that little tension of unpacking a conflict could have saved you a lifetime of grinding your teeth.
Building trust with truth. But could you pinpoint something that makes people feel truly seen, respected, or motivated?
One thing as a manager that some don't take seriously enough is the one-on-one meeting, and that it's if I have people in my responsibility, the one-on-ones are the most important part of my week, the most important meeting that I have, because for me to be able to build and grow 10 people, I can achieve much more than just whatever I do on my own. So to really take that moment of not just opening up the one-on-one and say, oh, so what's up? And then you don't have an agenda for it. You don't have any direction for it. And they're just like, oh, well, fine. And they're, okay, is there anything else? Because I need to go. That sort of makes you feel not important. And even, some might even not even have a one-on-one booked to begin with. So if that's an even bigger problem. But to actually take that moment to say, how are you? How are you really? Last time we spoke, this is what we talked about. I just wanted to follow up on that and to show them that whatever you say, it matters to me. And to go into the every person is different, and to meet them where they are. For instance, if you have someone who's an introvert and doesn't want to be in the spotlight, to not try to force them to be an extrovert and say, oh, well, we're going to practice and you're going to do your presentations and we have to put you into this mold. But to say, okay, this is the type of work that you enjoy, this is the path that you want to go, let's do that. If that is the job, then that's fine. Otherwise, you'll need to think about maybe if they're in the right position, if they if their job is talking to people and they don't like that, then obviously that's a different conversation. But just to make them feel seen in terms of this is me, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to go. And I have found it pretty annoying if I have a leader that we talk about something and they say that something is going to happen and then it never happens, or they forget, or they don't seem to really take notes or follow up on anything I say. So just to have that, maybe have notes on things that you've talked about, just so that you can pick up on it from where you left it. Um, so that they feel like everything you've talked about actually matters. It's not just that, oh, I am forced now to talk to you for 30 minutes every other week because that's just how we do it. Because then why even have the one-on-ones? And use them also to sort of drive towards what you want, if you're going to follow up on goals or whatever they are interested in talking about.
You're like a trendsetter, Frida. So what's your take on culture building? What really makes it stick?
Well, culture is reinforced by what is tolerated and what is celebrated and what is modeled. So it is sort of what you consistently do in the company all around. So it's sometimes some people can be very influential on the culture. So there might be one person who has a really big impact, good or bad, on the culture. But overall, it's something that you sort of build together. And you can't really build culture if you say that, oh, but these are our values, and you have a presentation of in an all hands meeting, and you say this is the values that we stand for as a company. It's and then the rest of the time that doesn't align with what's in the values, then they're not going to stick. So the culture is built in how we run our meetings, how we do our retros, if we even have retros, that's a place to start. How we onboard people, how we offboard people is a very important part. How we give feedback, how we deal with conflict, and how we react when someone has a personal crisis, or if something happens, or if someone dies, or anything can happen in a business. So that can be a uh, big event that can impact a lot of things. So those all of those rituals becomes the muscle memory of how we move in a company. So it's not enough to have something in terms of this is the company we want to be. If you then turn around and have someone like there's a tragedy in their family and you're like, no, that's not going to work for us, you're going to need to come to work, then it's not then it's not going to stick in that sense. So it's in everything we do. I like to it's a weird comparison that people said, but I like to compare it with culture, like the culture you have in the bacteria culture that you have in your body. It is gonna affect how you feel, but it's also affected by what you consume. So you need to make sure that there's a balance of all the good values that are healthy and that it's not too toxic, because then you're gonna get a tummy ache. But I know it's a weird comparison, but it really is a lot of what we do in our day to day that's going to affect on how you actually feel, and not just what you hear once every quarter in a town hall, for instance.
It was a very good metaphor. But Frida, your leadership approach is so important in these times. Being both kind and fair is exactly what we need. So if we could do the summary, if you could distill your leadership philosophy into a sentence, what would it be?
You can choose courage, or you can choose comfort, but you cannot have both. And that is from Brene Brown, who I mentioned previously, whose work I really enjoy and I take to heart. Real leadership requires leaning into being vulnerable and dealing with uncertainty, and um, being uncomfortable, and make being uncomfortable your home, because that is where you're going to grow. And also sometimes you need to be uncomfortable to make your team comfortable. And Also considering courage is that courage is what happens. Then something can feel scary. Otherwise, it's not courage. Then you're just doing something that you're fine with.
So true. But what are you taking with you from today's conversation?
Leadership is a lifelong journey. I don't think I'm an expert in it. I don't know if anyone really is, because it's just such a massive craft to work on it. You have to work on it forever. One thing that I found really helpful was to get coaching, which I got from you. That was very helpful when I felt stuck in my leadership journey, and it helped me put myself on the right path. And also just an advice that leadership can also be a bit lonely and rough sometimes. So it's good to find someone who can support you in that. Maybe you can't tell them all the details, but at least that, oh, this is really hard for me, and I need to take this somewhere and to get some help. And to not be afraid to explore different ways of seeing things, and staying true to yourself and what feels authentic to you. Because sometimes the chafing is telling you something, and sometimes the uncomfortable feeling might not be a beneficial uncomfortable feeling, might just be something that's actually wrong. So think about your leadership style, or maybe don't even read too much into the leadership books and try to find leaders somewhere else. Like I found one of my greatest leadership symbols is from Star Trek. So there's lessons where you least expect them sometimes, and hopefully they don't feel like a punch or a truck. Then you'll get them in a more pleasant way. But maybe sometimes the punch is necessary to shake you up as well.
Wow, that was a nice closure. But if someone listening is struggling to act on their inner compass as a leader, where can they start?
Well, it's everywhere, I guess. Is look internally to think about how I want to meet the world and what feels authentic to me. Am I a shark? Then maybe that's the way to go. But what is the way that you want to approach the world, and what is the culture that you want to create? And also, as I said, get coaching, get someone who can guide you in that. Pay attention. Don't get too stubborn the way I can be sometimes and think that I have all the answers, and take more of the growth perspective of, this is something I'm not perfect on, but let's go ahead and work on it a little bit, and I will improve with time.
Frida, thank you so much, and bless you for talking about coaching so friendly and warmly, and thank you for your honesty and inspiration. But where can people find you if they'd like to connect?
I would find me on LinkedIn. So just search for Frida Kjidderö, spells with KJI, and I'm the only one who has that name. So
Yes, and we say thank you for listening to Epic Talks, and bye.
bye. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. Leadership, it's about empowerment, connection, and creating opportunities for others to shine.